The United States, the state of Mexico, outside a small town. In a makeshift facility. Inside the huge pothole formed by the impact. A certain hammer stands out. Phil Coulson, agent, you mean, this hammer that fell from the sky is the one in Norse mythology? Looking at the thing that fell from the sky in front of him, Nick Fury dared to have a headache. It fell from an unknown universe. Similarly, it is also close to the huge energy burst point that can destroy the Earth. The source of the energy burst, they did not find. Instead, I found a hammer by the way. This is so. Next to him, Phil Coulson nodded with a wry smile. Yes, it's called Mjolnir. Those historians have researched the results based on the strange words above, and this is indeed the case. If is really the Mjolnir in the myth, it's normal that we can't pull it out. After all, in Legendary, it is made of the star core after the death of the planet, and there is Odin's divine power on it. Do you believe what they say? Are you telling me fairy tales here? Hearing this explanation, Nick Fury felt tired immediately. In my heart, a certain absurd feeling suddenly rose. However, I have to say that there is some truth to Phil Coulson's remarks. After all, aliens, magic and other things he accepted. It is not impossible to accept the existence of another god. However, when he thought of this, his heart suddenly jumped. You mean it's called Mjolnir? Then his master is the mythical Thor. Phil Coulson immediately chimed in. If nothing else, that's it. After all, it's Mjolnir. Hearing this, Nick Fury suddenly became serious. Since Mjolnir appeared here, Thor should also be in this area without accident. Phil Coulson, agent, no matter what method you use, you must find him for me. A god descended from the mortal world, and a hammer left here that no one can pick up. All these clues revealed a strange feeling. Now, he only hoped that nothing unexpected would happen. Director, do you still remember that weird guy who broke in yesterday? Phil Coulson looked over speechlessly. Looking at his confused eyes, he couldn't help but sigh. I think you seem to have forgotten that his name is Hearing this, Nick Fury's eyes widened. The expression on the face, I don't know whether to cry or laugh. You mean to say, have we offended him already? Phil Coulson spread his hands, his face full of helplessness. I think so. After all, we separated him from Mjolnir. How is it different from robbing other people's daughter-in-law? It's just a deep hatred. Nick Fury, I'm cracking. WWW. On the other side, the town. In a restaurant. Thor, deprived of his divine power, is eating. However, judging from the sullen expression on his face, now he is not in a very happy mood. Raising his head, he glanced at the curious gazes of the two people opposite him, and Thornton couldn't bear it any longer. He slapped the table and got up, roaring, I told you I am Thor, why don't you believe me? Several people were startled immediately, and noticed the strange gazes and pointing movements of the people around him. After a while, he quickly dissuaded him. Don't say it, we believe it, we. Thor, come down now. If you don't come down again, others will treat you as a mental patient again and put you in a mental hospital. Hearing this, Tolton was shocked and jumped off the table. He has already experienced the treatment of mental illness. And, I swear in my heart that I never want to experience it a second time. However, he still kept talking. I told you, I'm not a psycho, I'm Thor. Next to them, several people looked at each other. It was as if they could see the traces of pity in each other's eyes. This poor kid, his brain must have been smashed. While Thor was yelling, several people lowered their heads quietly and got together. Glancing at Thor, he whispered, what should we do now? It's not an option to go on like this. What is certain is that he is not a psychopath. After all, there is no psychopath who is so well trained and can put those agents down. Well, that's right. Jane Foster, an astronomer, agreed with this point of view. Perhaps, he just has well-developed limbs and a simple mind, and he has no malicious intentions. At this time, Professor Eric Savig smiled wryly. Perhaps he is right. He may be the Thor in the myth, but he just lost his power temporarily. That hammer that fell from the sky may be Mjolnir too. It's just that we have no way to prove this now. Unless, the Bifrost who sent him appears again. And the voice just fell. Suddenly, a light fell from the sky. The rainbow of colors is extra eye-catching. By the window, several people were shocked. Bifrost actually reappeared. That is to say, he is really forgiving. On the street, the sudden appearance of several figures is particularly eye-catching. Medieval-style clothing, as well as that sturdy shape. It is incompatible with the modern atmosphere of the whole town, full of a sense of disobedience. For a while, it caused a commotion among the crowd, and everyone watched. And after coming to Earth, Looking at the surrounding environment, the three warriors of Asgard were also surprised. Compared to the last time I came here, I have improved a lot. Yes, remember last time. But before he finished speaking, Sif rolled his eyes. Don't say that there is nothing there, just find Thor first. However, the voice just fell. A familiar figure walked towards him. Thor. Several people suddenly became pleasantly surprised. Why are you here? Did you come to see me? After a warm hug, Thor was a little puzzled. At the same time, I feel a little relieved in my heart. I'm afraid, they are the only ones who will come to visit him when they are in trouble. But soon, he couldn't be more pleased. Look at you. Look at a fart. As one of the three warriors of Asgard, Hogun couldn't help but swear, with an angry expression on his face. That guy Loki is now the king of gods in Asgard, ruling the realm of gods. Isn't that just right? Thor asked in surprise. He is much smarter than me, I believe he is more suitable for this position than me. Beside, Hedon was a little speechless. Thor, don't you see it yet? Degree? All of this is Loki's conspiracy. He bewitched you. Go to Jotunheim and start a war. That's why you annoy His Majesty Odin and have been deprived of your divine power. In this way, he will have a chance to sit on the throne of the God King. What? Hearing this, Thor was taken aback for a moment. Immediately afterwards, his brows furrowed deeply. You mean, Loki cheated on me again? Being cheated by Loki is not once or twice. It has been a common occurrence since Asgard. However, the impact this time was somewhat too great. Yes. Sif said solemnly, this time, he not only deceived us, but even His Majesty Odin. We are here this time to help you, to wish you well. The current Loki is no longer satisfied with the power to rule Asgard, he wants to kill you. Suddenly heard this amazing news. Thornton was a little unbelievable, his eyes widened. How is it possible? Loki is my brother. He never thought that Luigi would have such vicious thoughts. Although in Asgard, he always liked to make fun of Loki. Rubbing Loki on the ground, you can experience his strong pecs by the way. However, play is trouble. He never thought about the day when he met in battle. Thor looked over with eyes full of disbelief. Sif could only shake his head at this, and sighed helplessly. I think, if Odin didn't admit it, no one would think you two are brothers. That guy Loki has never been very likable, who knows what he thinks in his heart. This makes sense. Even Thor couldn't argue with that. One is a bearded muscular man, while the other is a weak little fresh meat. It doesn't look like it's real, however, Thornton became anxious when he thought of this. And what about my father? Didn't he stop Loki? Hearing this, the expression on Sif's face was a bit unpleasant. After banishing you to Earth, His Majesty Odin fell into a deep sleep. He has no idea what Loki is doing. It's all my fault. Thornton felt guilty for a while. With a sad face, he bowed his head and muttered to himself. If it wasn't for my business, my father wouldn't have entered Odin's sleep so soon. No. It's all Loki's plot. As he said that, Sif hurried forward and hugged him, feeling distressed. Behind them, the few people who followed Thor suddenly became a little messy. What the hell, this family relationship? Are you sure it's not a palace fight? At the moment. Suddenly, a gold vortex opened. Immediately afterwards, several figures came out from inside. The moment when he saw the leading figure, everyone was stunned. Exalted Mage. Why did you come to this place? Thor asked in surprise. Hearing this, Russell immediately gave him a blank look. The Earth is my place, will it be strange for me to be here? Thor shook his head, the expression on his face was a little startled. No, I mean, are you here to help me? Hearing this, Russell couldn't help chuckling immediately. Hee, you're thinking too much. Turning his head, he looked behind a few people and pointed at the road. The purpose of my coming here is for him, Professor Eric Savig? Thor and the others were suddenly at a loss, same. Like them, fell into a confused state. There are also Professor Eric and others in the rear. At the moment, they were staring wide-eyed. Looking at the few people walking towards him, he seemed a little overwhelmed. Alright, a strange supreme mage appeared. Why, still have a relationship with them? Obviously they are people who eat melons. Hello, Professor Eric Savig. Russell came slowly, although in a questioning tone. However, the affirmative meaning could not be more obvious. Hearing this, the expression on Eric's face was full of bewilderment. However, he nodded subconsciously. Yes. Hearing this, Russell turned his head in satisfaction. That's him, Tony. The most suitable helper for you on the whole Earth. I think, and the only one. Originally, he was a professor of astronomy. What's more, he still has a lot of research on the existence of Bifrost. He was also the first to discover the existence of the 9 realms. Not to mention S.H.I.E.L.D.'s Tesseract research. Even when Loki invaded the Earth, he was the first scientist to find him. If anyone on Earth could help Tony in his work, it's him. Behind him, Tony couldn't laugh or cry when he heard this. In my heart, I am full of remnants. Supreme Mage, I thought what was the helper you were talking about, but I didn't expect it to be a common human. Even if he knows more, it will be a monkey year for me to finish building Bifrost. Is this the one person I'm missing? No, what I lack is a professional team. A team with so much experience that they even got the F*K out of me on this project. Well, it had better be a mage, because the construction of Bifrost must have a magical parameter distance. If you can't even understand those magical techniques from Asgard, let alone others. Looking at Professor Eric with blank eyes in front of him, Tony wanted to cry without tears. What the hell, snot and tears. It was not easy to let the Supreme Mage find some helpers for himself. Result, Return Tony was in a complicated mood, expressing that he was very tired. However, in the end, it could only be turned into a helpless sigh. Okay. That's him. Something is better than nothing. No matter how much you complain in your heart, you can only admit it by pinching your nose. At the moment, between the two talking, the people next to him suddenly noticed something was wrong. His complexion suddenly changed, and suddenly became a little weird. Wait. You just said, Bifrost? Thor's eyes widened, and he asked in disbelief. You mean, build a Bifrost? In Midgard? That's right. Russell nodded affirmatively. Hearing this, Tony was taken aback immediately, with a look of seeing a ghost on his face. Do you know how difficult it is to build Bifrost? Even in Asgard, with the help of Dwarf, it took a lot of hard work. Besides, this is still in Midgard. Having said that, he laughed himself, feeling a little unrealistic. It's not that he looks down on Earth's technology. Rather, it is. Although the direction of development is slightly different. However, Earth's technology is not even worthy of lifting shoes in front of Asgard. The technological level of the two sides is completely incomparable. It is simply the difference between heaven and earth. I'm afraid you don't need to worry about these problems. Russell glanced at him and smiled indisputably. If we only talk about the technology tree, the Earth is indeed not Asgard's opponent. But the Earth in the Marvel world has always been a place to hang out. Let's not talk about Tony Stark, who is treated like a son. Even in Wakanda, there are people who can match Tony's mind. Even, faintly surpassed, Black Panther's younger sister, Surui. That's why he took Black Panther, aka T'Challa, so easily. Do you really think he is just greedy for those few pieces of vibranium? However, between words, Russell keenly sensed a problem. At the same time, there are also some things that he has forgotten. Dwarf. Almost forgot they existed. In terms of building, dwarfs are definitely professional. It is not an exaggeration to say that it is the most powerful in the entire Marvel. Tony's Infinity Gauntlet was just for fun. If you really want Infinity Gauntlet, it's better to use dwarfs. Professional team. This evaluation could not be more appropriate for them. It seems that I have time to go there myself, Russell thought to himself. These dwarfs are no easy talkers, except for Odin, I'm afraid. Not many people can handle them, but soon. He didn't have the heart to think about it so much. In the sky. Out-of-phase mutation. The vast vortex stirred the clouds and enveloped the sky. Immediately, the light of 7 colored appeared again. It's Bifrost. Loki is catching up. Hearing this, the expression on Thor's face became more and more bitter. He couldn't help but clench his fists tightly and looked over intently. However, the moment he saw the figure in the dust, he suddenly widened his eyes. His eyes were filled with disbelief. No, not Loki. It is Destroyer. The dust cleared. Suddenly, a tall figure appeared in front of everyone. Silver White's body, streamlined shape. The whole body exudes a thick steel color. Just standing in front of it gives people a suffocating sense of oppression. What's more, he was still stared at by his only one eye that was exposed. It's simply tingling. Seeing this, everyone immediately understood what Thor said. Suddenly, his expression changed, and the faces of the few people from Asgard were ashen. It is His Majesty Odin's destroyer armor. How is it possible? How could Loki have sent him out? This big killer has always been hidden in Odin's treasure curry. Serve as a guard of Odin's treasury. For thousands of years, it has never appeared in the outside world. No one but Odin should be able to drive this big guy. Hearing this, Thor shook his head, his face ashen. It's the gun of eternity, it has the ability to activate the destroyer. Father fell into a deep sleep, and the gun of eternity is probably in Loki's hands now. Originally, after listening to the descriptions of several people, there was still a little thought in his heart. However, the destroyer appeared, but it was directly crushed and shattered. Loki really want to kill him. However, thinking of this, a wry smile appeared on his face. I'm already a common mortal now, is it really necessary to activate the destroyer to kill me? How can you kill a chicken with a sledgehammer? It's like shooting mosquitoes with a cannon. Loki's character is really too cautious. Beside, looking at the big guy in front of him, Tony was obviously a little stunned. Couldn't help pointing. Is this why these Asgardians think Earth is inferior to them? Looking at it now, I really can't compare with them. Just look at the size of the destroyer. Compared with him, his steel battlesuit is like a small shrimp. More importantly, the fiery light of the destroyer. The powerful energy overflows and comes out directly through the body. Even dyed the entire destroyer armor a piece of red. Visible power. Even through the air, it seems to be able to feel the heat. It's almost like burning them up. Compared with it, his arc reactor is like a firefly, there is no comparison at all. This can't help but make Tony feel a sense of frustration. But soon, he calmed down the thoughts in his heart and cheered up. This is all temporary. One day, I, Tony Stark, will be able to build a battlesuit like this. Yes, be ambitious. Russell couldn't help giving him a thumbs up. It's nice and comforting to have such an idea. But, have you considered Odin's feelings? The brainchild of the human Asgard, the artifact created with great effort, do you want to surpass it? Oh, it's Tony Stark. That's all right. Let me tell you something, Tony is a good stealer. Maybe it was because he took one more look at it, and he learned it. In my heart, ideas flowed. But turning his head, Russell looked to the side with interested eyes. Dr. Banner, are you interested in this big guy? Hulk versus Destroyer. It's interesting just thinking about it. Beside him, he was taken aback for a moment. Immediately afterwards, he touched the back of his head and smiled mischievously. No interest, let Supreme Mage handle it yourself. He had a hard time learning how to control his anger. Make peace with the Hulk inside you. Don't want to experience the sour feeling of becoming a monster again. Hearing this, Russell felt a little regretful. Pity. I thought it would be a good show. In the end, the protagonist said that he didn't want to play anymore. Shocking and roaring, the ground shook. The huge figure of the destroyer walked in front of everyone. Covered in black shadows, it even blocked the sun. Looking up at the titan in front of them, there was a trace of despair in everyone's heart. A feeling of powerlessness spreads all over the body. Even the few people from Asgard are like this. No one knows the power of the destroyer better than them. This is an artifact cast by Odin when he fought against the 9 realms, leaving behind a great reputation. Even if it is in Loki's hands now, they will definitely be able to deal with them easily. At this time, Thor couldn't help but stepped forward and roared. Loki, something is coming at me, let these innocent humans go. Heard the words. In the Golden Hall, Loki, who was sitting on the throne holding the eternal spear, suddenly laughed. You know what, Thor, I just like the way you're so single. In that case, then as you wish. On the destroyer, the scorching light became more and more dazzling. The huge amount of energy even raised the surrounding temperature a lot, making it extremely hot. Turning his eyes away, Thor's figure who seemed to be ready to die heroically, Russell couldn't help being a little speechless. He seems to have forgotten that my Supreme Mage is also here. No way? This stunned young man really thought that he would just watch him die on the earth, right? Or, did he really think Odin just gave up on him? Won't you hang up on him? This guy is really that brainless. Russell couldn't help muttering in his heart. No wonder Loki can fool him around. Don't blame Loki for being too cunning. It can only be said that he himself is too stupid. Shaking his head, leaving the thoughts in his mind behind, Russell's figure quickly stepped forward. Yes, that's right, he's ready to shoot, for nothing else. Just for this set of destroyer armor. What Professor Eric and the like are just incidental. His real purpose of coming here is to come for the destroyer. This set of destroyer armor can make Odin harden the existence of the gods. Even if the appearance performance is not satisfactory. However, this does not prevent Russell from studying his mind. What's more, this thing has a high enough collection value. Anyway, even if he doesn't want it, I'm afraid, it will also be given in vain. Rather than being blasted with a hammer, it is better to leave it to him to study. As for Odin's reaction. Anyway, he's closing his eyes and pretending to be dead now, so let him watch. At this time, Asgard, on the throne of the Golden Hall. The moment he saw that familiar figure, the smile on Loki's face froze. Exalted Mage. How did he appear in this place? Although the entire Earth belongs to his territory. But, is it really such a coincidence? Just happened to be here? If this is said, who will believe it? Anyway, Loki doesn't believe it. Staring fixedly at that figure, he suddenly felt uneasy. At the same time, he couldn't help gnashing his teeth. Could it be that Odin meant it, that Odin made him do it? Even if he has become immortal and is also the prince of Asgard, do you still favor him in your heart? Thinking about it carefully, Odin's favoritism towards Thor is not once or twice. It's been undisguised since childhood. Thinking of this, his heart suddenly burned with anger. It's not fair. Obviously now I am the god king of Asgard. Why do you still favor a Thor who has been reduced to a mortal? In my heart, I became more and more furious. Holding the gun of eternity in his hand, the expression on Loki's face grew colder. In that case, I will let you give up completely. And this hateful supreme mage, I want to let you know what the anger of the god king is. Anger made him lose his mind a little. And sitting on the throne, holding the eternal spear and the powerful destroyer armor. Let him feel stronger than ever before. In other words, he's a little bloated. Above the destroyer, in the one eye, the gaze is scorching, fixed and not scattered. Powerful energy gathers here, and the scorching light seems to brighten the blind dog's eyes. True hot sight. Seeing this scene, Russell immediately smiled. Loki's inflated. He didn't really think that he could touch himself with the destroyer armor, did he? However, it's just a good time to experiment with the new ability. However, at this moment, in the sky, a dazzling light appeared. Like a comet descending on the earth, with a long tail flame, it is extremely gorgeous. That is the phantom brought about by the outrageously fast speed, which is beyond imagination. Even Loki was mesmerized by the light that appeared in the corner of his eye. What's this? Looking up at the sky, Russell felt vaguely familiar. This energy, and this light. Soon, his heart moved, and he was a little dumbfounded. It's Carol. She actually came back at this time. As the saying goes, come sooner rather than later. Carol will return to Earth at this time. This was something Russell never expected. It just so happens that there is such a powerful energy-based reaction here. And the conspicuous destroyer armor, it's hard not to attract her attention. Really, it didn't surprise him. Soon, the light in the sky circled around. Immediately flew in this direction. Seeing this, Russell couldn't help but sigh. In this case, we can only get it done quickly. Originally, he wanted to teach Loki a hard lesson. By the way, try the ability of Man of Steel, and also test the ability of this destroyer armor. However, the situation waits for no one. This big mommy is a real militant. Well, to be precise, it should be a model who likes to solve problems with his fists. He's always been the kind of person who doesn't talk too much. If there is any misunderstanding, give this destroyer a shot. I'm afraid, this thing is not far from being scrapped. After all, the destroyer couldn't even hold a hammer. How can I withstand the head hammer of Aunt Surprise? Thinking of this, Russell immediately withdrew his gaze, and looked towards the huge amounts of destroyer. In both hands, the brilliance of magic gathered, and the radiance of gold became more and more dazzling. Then try this trick. The voice just fell. Soon, the light that shrouded his body changed. The dazzling brilliance seemed to dissipate in an instant. In an instant, it became extremely dim. The magic power of the deep black pervades. It was like a veil covering him. The magic power floating around flutters like tentacles. Misty black mist stretches in the void. Everything in the past has been dyed black. It's like being cast a shadow. Just looking at it gives people a chilling feeling. It even feels like the surrounding temperature has dropped a bit. See this scene, Wang Niren. What kind of magic is this? But soon, he noticed the familiar aura in it. For a moment, I was horrified. This is Breath of Dormammu. That is to say, black magic? No wonder he didn't see it from Waishandi's book. Spread, extend, constantly spread. It was as if Dormammu had descended in the dark dimension. Everything happened quietly, strangely and inexplicably. When everyone came back to their senses, everything around them was shrouded in darkness. That dark color is simply deep to the extreme. Not even the sun can penetrate the slightest bit. Not long. The entire area is soaked in pitch black shadows. A creepy atmosphere filled the scene for a while. The other side. Shield and others who came in a hurry. Looking at the scene in front of him, he suddenly felt a little shuddering. Even the well-informed Nick Fury was dazed, muttering to himself. What the hell is going on here? Is this the fate of angering the gods? I apologize now, is there still a chance? and the other side. Asgard, on the throne of the Golden Hall. Loki has a look of astonishment written all over his face. What happened? Why did the destroyer armor suddenly lose control? No. Why is the connection between the eternal spear and it interrupted? He just felt dark. Then, the destroyer armor lost control. Even its existence can no longer be sensed. Holding the eternal spear high again, Loki tried again with some unbelief. On the gunroom, a dazzling light bloomed. Like a little bit of starlight, it spreads through the space. However, there was still no response. Loki suddenly looked slumped, and sat on the throne. This feeling, it's like the destroyer armor doesn't exist. It's almost as if its existence was suddenly erased. Thinking of this, his heart suddenly moved. Could it be that the Supreme Master did it? Among all the people present, the only one who can achieve this level is probably him, right? The more he thought about it, the more certain he was about this guess. At the same time, he couldn't help becoming more and more afraid of the existence of this Supreme Mage. In the same way, he couldn't help gnashing his teeth, secretly hating in his heart. This guy ruined my good deed. But now, he didn't have time to think so much. The destroyer armor was lost and fell into the hands of the Supreme Mage. What's more, even Thor didn't die. Even his plans were exposed. If Odin wakes up and hears this, then I'm afraid Odin has killed my heart. Originally, he was treated like someone picked up in Asgard, and he was not welcomed by others. All favor Thor. And now, this kind of thing happened again. After struggling for a while, Loki quickly made up his mind. Leave Asgard and go to a place where Odin can't find it. Let's go tonight. The fish will die and the net will be broken. The weird atmosphere gradually spread. The deep darkness seems to awaken the fear in people's hearts. Gradually, it spread in everyone's heart. Obviously in the sun. But in everyone's heart, they couldn't feel the warmth of the tomb. The deeper the fear, the colder it is. Walking on the ground shrouded in pitch black. Seeing the wonderful expressions on everyone's faces, a wicked thought suddenly popped up in Russell's mind. I believe that Dormammu will definitely like it when he sees them like this. Because, to him, such a soul must be quite delicious. In a sense, Dormammu is indeed a demonic existence. And what Russell didn't expect was that what I released was obviously just a cage for restraint, but why does it feel like it has become a halo of fear? Only part of his power was shown in a simulated way. These people have fallen into fear and cannot extricate themselves. From this point of view, Dormammu's power is really useful. Only, unfortunately, these people seem to have misunderstood this power. There is nothing inherently evil about power. However, for the dark, for the fear of the unknown. It is one of the instincts engraved in everyone's body. The terrifying power of the dark dimension perfectly fits this point. So, everyone on the scene, including Hammer Thor, they all fell into the quagmire of fear, unable to extricate themselves. At this time, in the sky, what's going on here? Carol looked at the dark and silent scene below, and was suddenly a little dazed. What the hell is going on here? Also, this breath. Why does it feel a little familiar? Dormammu. Noticing her vigilant eyes looking over, Russell suddenly smiled and shook his head. No. Dormammu has no chance of being on Earth. First meeting. Carol, I think you should be able to guess who I am. Exalted Mage? Carol was a little surprised. However, as he spoke, he quickly fell from the sky and came to the front. Are you really the Supreme Mage? Carol frowned and looked around, looking suspicious. Fake exchange. Seeing her small movements, Russell suddenly smiled. However, it may be that the current appearance has misunderstood you. As he spoke, he waved his hand. In an instant, the surrounding dark scene quietly receded. The bright sunshine once again sprinkled on the earth. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Immediately afterwards, he looked over and looked at Russell. There was a hint of fear in his eyes. At the same time, it also contains a little awe. The power of the Supreme Mage is really terrifying. Turning the corner of his eyes, Carol curled his lips when he noticed the awe in everyone's eyes. Okay. I'm starting to believe you're the Supreme Mage. Actually, wanted to verify this. It couldn't be easier for her. Just send a message in the chat group. It's just that she didn't bother to think about it so much. Strong and willful. Anytime. I think we need to have a good chat. Hearing this, Russell immediately couldn't help raising his eyebrows. Now? Don't you want to catch up with your old friends? As he spoke, his finger pointed in a certain direction. Carol turned his head and suddenly saw a familiar figure. Fairy. Nick Fury also had a look of surprise on his face and hurried over. Long time no see, Carol. However, What I don't think you know is that I have already changed my name. Nick Fury. Hearing this, a smile appeared on Carol's face. Alright, Agent Fury. Now I'm the director, Nick Fury quipped. Well, Director Nick Fury. Seeing the two of them chatting happily, Russell breathed a sigh of relief. At the same time, there is no more management. There is one thing to say. Those who cannot go home for 20 or 30 years are all ruthless characters. And Aunt Surprise is the most ruthless one. Turning his head, his eyes were on the body of the destroyer armor. Loki's weak mental strength was directly squeezed out of the armor by his magic. Even under the package of dark energy, it is impossible to even sense its existence. In other words, now this destroyer armor is completely easy to use for 130 yuan. It was assigned to his subordinates by Russell and was included in the bag. Definitely, there is another threat to it, that's Odin. As the owner of the destroyer armor, he has more powerful authority. Maybe not even dark energy can stop the connection. However, Russell has long been prepared for this. As long as you return to the magic holy place, you can immediately cut off the connection between the two. Even its existence cannot be sensed. When the time comes, can Odin be ashamed and take it back from my hand? Thinking of this, Russell couldn't help looking to the sky. As if to travel through space, enjoy the wonderful expression of Odin at the moment. However, at this moment, Supreme Mage, I want to learn that magic just now. It's Tony. Give up, you won't learn. I want to try it. Okay. Go back and let Dormammu teach you. Let Dormammu teach me. What else can that stupid guy do besides fight? Do you want me to be a sandbag? Extraterrestrial. The vastness of space. The dark night sky is like a curtain, dotted with shining stars. In orbit, satellites from various countries turn their heads one after another. At the same time, it is biased in one direction. And on the Earth, I don't know how many people are watching this scene on the satellite screen, and their hearts are jumping. Floating in the universe. Carol looked at the figure beside him, feeling a little speechless. Why did you choose this place to talk? In the vacuum of the universe, the transmission of sound cannot be carried out. But it didn't affect the conversation between the two at all. Because the power of the mind cannot be stopped. Because, it's just a good place to sunbathe, Russell said with a smile. Hearing this, Carol became even more speechless. Can't help but give him a blank look. Want to sunbathe? Then why don't you run to the sun to bask in the sun, wouldn't it be more perfect? Russell was a little dumbfounded. No, it's just right here. At least, this is the case for him now, accompanied by the movement of his hands open. More and more intense light gradually shrouded. Amazing energy vortexes gathered around him. The huge energy contained in it is simply visible to the naked eye. In the body, countless cells are growing at an explosive speed. The level of activity is astonishingly outrageous. Like a bottomless pit, madly devouring the energy brought by the sun. On the side, Carol was a little stunned when he watched this scene. Even she couldn't explain clearly, the supreme mage in front of her. Can it be considered a human being? It's okay to be able to survive in the vacuum of the universe. At least, she can do it herself. But what the hell is this ability to absorb solar energy? Photosynthesis? Vegetative? Looking at the golden light shining in front of him, the more and more powerful figure. Carol felt that this could only be described in two words. Superman. After a long time, Russell stretched and stopped the energy-absorbing action. Superman's Man of Steel is powerful though, but sadly, he didn't end up like Superman. There is so much time to slowly progress. The more he knew, the more insecure he felt. So, he chose the most violent one, face the sun. Use the existence of magic to plunder the special energy contained in it. Suck and swallow. The speed can be more than 10 times faster. Definitely, he can't really do that right now. Mainly because the body does not allow it. He was afraid that if he was any more violent, he would lose his qualifications as a human being. Turning her head and casting a glance, Russell immediately sensed what was going on in her heart, and raised her eyebrows. It's not polite to speak ill of others in your heart. Is it polite for you to peek into other people's minds? Carol retorted. Cough cough. Russell suddenly choked up. What this says, half and half, each other. But soon, he came back to his senses and looked directly at her. Tell me, what do you want to talk to me about? Hearing this, the expression on Carol's face suddenly became serious. With her serious face, she is even more resolute. I suddenly discovered that this world is strange to me. Especially after this magical chat group appeared. I found that there are many strong people in it, I have never even heard of them. That's it. Russell was suddenly a little surprised. He thought she was going to tell him something. Feeling alien? Who kept you from being on Earth? It's normal if you haven't heard of it, because they have always set the Earth as their first goal. A disaster-ridden global village. Whenever you do something, you must give the Earth to Huo Huo. Think Dormammu. 10,000 years of dead house, just staring at the Earth. And Cytoric, the few believers are also from Earth. Out of the deep red universe, it is the Earth. On the contrary, Mo Faithto. This guy has a bit of a wide range of business. The whole universe is his hunting ground. The global village may be one of his favorite entertainment venues. Facing her puzzled eyes, Russell shrugged and said, "If you want to know this information, I suggest you talk to Nick Fury, he must know a lot. At the very least, definitely know something about faith. Definitely, if you think it's not enough, you can come to the magic holy place. In the library, there are many records about these Mephistas." Hearing this, Carol nodded thoughtfully. Then, as if he suddenly thought of something, he raised his head again and asked, "And what about that god egg?" Russell was speechless for a moment. What the hell, is this treating him like an encyclopedia? 100,000 why? Go to Yondu of the Predator faction, he has information about this guy. After thinking for a while, Russell then added another sentence. Reminded, however, I advise you to be careful. If you want to make a move against Egg, you'd better get ready first. After all, the god who was blown to death. It is really difficult to measure his strength. Carol nodded, expressing his understanding. Immediately afterwards, his eyes became serious again. Supreme Mage, I would like to invite you to crusade against the Carey Empire. Are you out of your mind? Want to drag me into the water again? Russell had black question marks all over his face. For the surprised aunt who said this, he was a little curious about her strange brain circuit. However, on the surface, he could only sigh, I can't do this. As the Supreme Mage, it is my duty to protect the Earth. If I leave, it is difficult to guarantee that no accidents will happen. However, if you want to deal with the Kree Empire, I have a suitable candidate here that I can recommend to you. Who? Thor. As long as you help him get the hammer back, I'm sure he'll be happy to help. Definitely, provided Odin doesn't beat you to death. New York. Trident Building. Inside S.H.I.E.L.D. Looking at the books as high as a hill in front of him, Carol couldn't help being a little speechless. There are so many? Is this all about Moto Faith? No. Nick Fury shook his head with a wry smile. This isn't intelligence, it's mythology legendary. Myth legendary. Carol was stunned. How do you feel like you've been cheated? Am I being fooled by Supreme Mage? Noticing her puzzled eyes, Nick Fury was also a little tired. What the hell, do you think it's easy for me to help you find these things? Spreading his hands, the expression on his face was full of helplessness. We also know very little about what you call Faith the Lord of Hell. The only record is this one. With that said, Nick Fury picked up a document and handed it over. Carol took it and opened it to check. The devil's soul-selling bargain who called me Faith. The skull-headed knights that appear from time to time. The flames from hell. What are these things? Are you sure is the bad taste of this hell lord? However, after reading it, Carol was still a little confused. There is not much written about Faith above. Except for mentioning a name, the rest is all mentioned in one stroke. Soon, she gathered herself together, and she continued. The Supreme Mage said that you will have information about Faith here. Hearing this, Nick Fury suddenly smiled wryly, with a helpless expression on his face. Then I think it could be that he thinks too much of us. Although our agents are all elites, they are all common people. He couldn't even defeat a god, who had fallen into the mortal world. Not to mention, to spy on a devil from hell, it's simply impossible. However, despite the constant trough in my heart. However, the only thing that made him feel lucky was, our existence has finally entered the vision of the Supreme Mage. Although it's just an object of blame. However, it is much better than being ignored directly. At the very least, we can see a little hope. Thinking of this, Nick Fury couldn't help but feel the urge to burst into tears. In my heart, I sighed endlessly. The hard work during this time has not been in vain. Alright. Hearing this, the expression on Carol's face was a bit unpleasant. It seems that this Supreme Mage is not as easy talking as he appears on the surface. He lied to me. That's for sure. Her premonition has always been accurate. As for the reason, maybe I interrupted him sunbathing? Weird hobby. Anyway, she said she couldn't understand. Getting up, Carol was about to turn around and leave. Seeing this, Nick Fury was stunned, and quickly said, Carol, where are you going? Go to that Supreme Mage. Carol didn't look back. Hearing this, Nick Fury's eyes lit up immediately. In the eyes, there is a scorching light. This is an opportunity. He said for sure. Do you know where the magic holy place is? Hearing this, the expression on Carol's face was suddenly stunned. Even the steps are stagnant. She really doesn't seem to know where the magic holy place is. Turning his head, Carol looked over suspiciously. You know? That's definitely. Nick Fury breathed a sigh of relief. For a moment, a confident smile appeared on his face. We have always wanted to deal with this supreme mage, and definitely know where the mages are. Go. I'll take you there myself. By the way, take me in too. Kamar Taj. Inside the magic holy place. Russell looked at the figure who was eating and drinking in front of him. The expression on his face was also somewhat helpless. Thor, don't you think it would be inappropriate for you to stay here like this? Gobbling it up. Hearing this, Tony immediately raised his head and said indifferently. What's this? Based on the friendship between us Asgard and you, isn't this a very normal thing? Hearing this, Russell couldn't help but rolled his eyes and sighed. What the hell? Co-author, I had a good meal last time I went to Asgard. Are you going to eat it now? Reciprocity? This is what I said. But, looking at the fat boy's happy water and fried chicken chips in the hammer's hand, Russell always felt that the development of things would be a little out of control. What if Thor becomes a fat house with him? Will Odin be tempted to bring up his guns and fight? However, this guy suddenly became thick-skinned. The brazen lie here doesn't want to go out. Thinking of this, he suddenly couldn't help sighing. Open the chat group and say hello. Supreme Mage Russell. At Odin, if you don't take him back, I'm afraid he will stay on the earth. I fell in love with beer fried chicken and the taste of Fagi happy water. This stuff is poisonous, I'm afraid the hammer is about to become addictive. However, having said that, don't you want to go back to Asgard and expose Loki's conspiracy? I don't want to, Thor said in a muffled voice without raising his head. It's enough for SIF to go back. Anyway, I'm just a mortal who has lost his divine power. Besides, Hildam has told me, Loki has left Asgard, I don't know where to go. Co-authoring is self-defeating. Overeating to fill your empty divine power? But, Loki this guy. Russell rubbed his chin in thought. However, at this moment, the fluctuation of the magic barrier caught his attention. In the sky, there is a wavy transparent enchantment. At the moment it has turned into a rough sea. The violent energy fluctuations seem to overturn the entire enchantment. Crumbling. Outside the magic holy place. Nick Fury couldn't help being speechless as he watched the astonishing scene in front of him. Isn't it a little bad to knock on the door like this? Hardcore knock? Physics-breaking magic? No, Carol said, and punched him hard again. I was just saying hello to him, Mum Marvel and Nick Fury. Russell muttered to himself. The presence of these two people here did not surprise him. However, he had a doubt in his heart, that is. Where did Dormammu go? Didn't you tell him to keep an eye on the gate? Why is there no response at all when others call in? Aside, something strange in the sky immediately attracted Thor's attention. Putting down the fat house happy water in his hand, he straightened up quickly. Could it be someone invaded? No, Russell was about to say something more. At this time, outside the door, a figure hurried in. Supreme Mage. Before Modu had time to catch his breath, he spoke hastily. However, before he finished speaking, he was directly interrupted by Russell. I already know something. Go and bring them in. Mordo choked suddenly. His eyes stared blankly, his face full of resentment. This is so. Can't you let me finish my sentence? I finally ran over to report the situation. Why did you let me out? Mordo suddenly felt heartbroken, but at the moment didn't dare to say more. He had no choice but to nod his head reluctantly, then turned and left. Not long. Following behind Modu, two figures walked in. The moment he saw these two figures, Tolton choked for a moment, and said with trembling fingers. Aren't you the one? The one who stopped me from getting Mjolnir back? And you, alien? Hearing this, Nick Fury's face froze when he just walked in. I can't help MMP in my heart. This hammer, why is it so vengeful? However, Carol next to him suddenly felt a little upset. It's okay to be pointed at like that, but how dare you call her an alien? Just because she's 100 million points stronger than the people of Common Earth? Or is it because of the armor of the Kree Empire? However, after thinking about it, she immediately thought of what Supreme Mage told her not long ago. Ever since, there was a little interest in the eyes looking at the hammer. Without saying a word, he came to him. Under Hammer's astonished eyes, he was lifted up directly. Come on, I'll take you out for a walk. After finishing speaking, he soared into the sky. Hada. Accompanied by Thor's scream of being caught off guard. The light flickered, leaving a comet-like phantom in the sky. Then, disappeared. Seeing this, Nick Fury was stunned. Feeling lost in my heart. There is an illusion of being abandoned. Looking at the Supreme Mage who was smiling and looking at him, he couldn't help feeling a little apprehensive. This Supreme Mage shouldn't do anything to me? I feel uneasy. Come to think of it, he doesn't seem to have offended anything. Well, that should be the case, right? So, meeting his interested eyes, Nick Fury had no choice but to bite the bullet and speak. Hello, Supreme Mage. A normal greeting. However, Russell squinted at the black marinated egg in front of him, and his smile was a little thought-provoking. Nick Fury, huh? Did you know? A lot of mages have been complaining to me recently. Complaint? Nick Fury froze for a moment. Immediately afterwards, the expression on his face turned into astonishment. Couldn't help pointing. Yes. Russell nodded, pretending to sigh. Those people wandering outside should be arranged by you? They are already affecting the daily life of mages. If you don't take action, I think a lot of mages will want to talk to you. Even being a mage is not exempt from the miscellaneous grains of human beings. But, can you imagine the scene of being watched intentionally or unintentionally as soon as you go out? It's like being in an old monkey. During this period of time, Russell has received many complaints from mages. However, what made him somewhat unexpected was that, before he went to find this shield director to have a heart-to-heart talk, he delivered it himself. Those people outside? Hearing this, Nick Fury was taken aback for a moment. Immediately afterwards, I couldn't help coughing dryly. It's a little embarrassing to say. These people were originally used to arrange to test the enrollment criteria of the magic holy place. See if a few lucky ones make it to the magical holy place. Unexpectedly, it was actually complained by someone? Don't these people know how to be cautious? He couldn't help complaining in his heart. However, after all, they are all found on a temporary basis, so don't ask too much. They didn't hug Mage's thigh directly. I'm afraid they are reserved enough. Right now. Nick Fury stroked the back of his head with an embarrassed expression on his face. I'll get them out of here immediately. After finishing speaking, he glanced quietly. Seeing that Russell's expression was the same, he was immediately relieved. But soon, he couldn't help but speak again. With a flattering smile on his face, he asked cautiously. Supreme Mage, may I ask, what are the conditions for becoming a mage? For the power of magic, he still has some unwillingness to give up. Whether it's the hearsay in Tony's mouth, or the terrifying shadow that still remains in the military, or the creepy dark breath not long ago, nothing could stop the longing in his heart. On the contrary, it became more and more serious. Supreme Mage, do you think I still have a chance? Nick Fury asked cheekily, holding on in his heart. Hearing this, Russell couldn't help rolling his eyes. Just you? No, you didn't. This black stewed egg, the daughter-in-law must have too much, right? I'm not some Hogwarts, everyone is stuffed into it. Even you want to be mage? Wash and sleep early. In dreams, there is everything. Asgard, inside the Golden Hall. Huge amounts of atop the throne. Odin holds the spear of eternity and stands majestically. It's just that there is a little tiredness in the expression on his face. It made the Queen Frigga next to her feel distressed. Looking at both sides of the throne, it was empty. Odin looked a bit disappointed. I don't know what happened to Loki now. Because of Loki's departure, he had to wake up from his deep sleep early. Thinking about it now, I regret it. Because it was completely different from what he had planned. A real waste of money and people. Not only the destroyer armor was taken away by the Supreme Mage. The point is that he has nothing to do but just watch. What's more, even Loki has left Asgard, far away from him. Although it was picked up. However, even if it is just a cat and a dog. After raising them for so long, they can also develop feelings. Not to mention, this is still his own child. Odin's inner thoughts are extremely complicated. Both a little sad and a little relieved. He is really afraid that the two brothers will kill each other. Thinking about this experience, it is very heartbreaking. However, thinking of this, he immediately thought of his other child. I don't know what's going on with Thor now. Although he is belligerent, irritable, and brainless. Even from him, Odin could only see faults. However, only a little is enough. Without him, only your own. His mind sank into it, and Odin instantly saw the scene on Earth. The seat of Thor. Just, listening to the whispers coming from the ear. His complexion became more and more ugly, and his eyes gradually widened. Until a certain moment, he couldn't bear it anymore. For a moment, his heart was shaken, and he was furious. Blowing his beard and staring, he almost couldn't stop the eternal spear. Hildam, bring that idiot back to me, on the earth. Where Mjolnir is located. Carol was instantly satisfied when he looked around at the agents who were acting as if they hadn't seen them. Looks like Nick is doing a great job. At the very least, there won't be any unsightly people running out of bricks. Aside. Thor's hair was disheveled, his hair was burnt, and his nose was running. He looked embarrassed as if he had been bullied. Looking at the eyes in front of him, the eyes are extremely empty, and his face is full of loveless expressions. The ghost knows what he has experienced in the past few minutes. Being thrown from a height? No, that's all pediatrics. He never thought that flight is such a dangerous thing. All the cells in his body were whining, as if his bones were trembling. The cold wind is as sharp as a knife. The speed is so terrible that his hair is on fire. He even felt that if he flew down again, his whole body would turn into a torch. Looking at Carol next to him as if nothing had happened, he felt a little stuffy for no reason. Why are there so many strong people on this small earth? Even more than Asgard. The presence of the Supreme Mage, he also found acceptable. After all, Asgardians are nothing new. Although, this Supreme Mage is many times stronger than Asgardian Heimdall in Asgard. However, the one next to him expressed some incomprehension. The explosive power is unobstructed. It even gave him the feeling that he was stronger than Odin. Odin is secretive and never reveals his power easily. And the one in front of me, show your sharpness. The powerful power and the dazzling light can almost blind people's eyes. Even if I get back my divine power and pick up Mjolnir, I'm afraid I won't be his opponent. Now, he is very smart and self-aware. I don't even have any thoughts of revenge in my heart. Beside, looking at the stunned Thor, Carol couldn't help frowning. Supreme Mage said, as long as I can help you get back Mjolnir, you will help me? Get the hammer back. Hearing this, Tolton's whole body trembled, and he couldn't help becoming excited. As long as it can restore your divine power, don't say it's a favor, even if it's 10, I can agree. Hearing this, Carol immediately showed a satisfied smile on his face. No, just one is enough, she is not greedy either. As long as the Thor in front of him is willing to help, that's enough. From Nick Fury, he's learned enough. For example, his identity, Asgard's status. And Odin's punishment, for him, it's more like a trial than exile. The throne of Asgard will be his sooner or later. Carol saw this right away, although she likes to use her fists to solve problems. However, that doesn't mean she can't think. Combining the content in the chat group and the reaction of this Supreme Mage, she quickly guessed the truth in her heart. After all, if it is really Odin's punishment, then this Mjolnir will not follow to Earth. As for the other contender for the throne, Loki. Alright. She has reason to suspect that this guy Odin is really playing dead. As thoughts flowed, she soon had an idea in her mind. And put it into action immediately. Look, Thor. The words should just fall. Suddenly, a shining light appeared. The huge energy instantly formed flames, covering her body. The double star mode is turned on instantly. Drink. A light drink. Under the gaze of everyone. The hammer that couldn't be picked up was just lifted up abruptly. Even, look at the look on her face. It seems that there is still some unfinished business? I didn't expect it to be so easy. Carol shrugged and tossed the hammer away. It seems that the spell cast by Odin is not very good. At the moment, Thor was completely taken aback. He thought that this man would use some special method to help him get the hammer back. Result: just pick up the hammer so abruptly? Break the spell above with violence. Seeing Mjolnir return to his hand, Tolton felt a little emotional, full of thoughts. And the long-lost surge of divine power in his body made his heart extremely complicated. My father said that only those who are qualified can take it up. Perhaps, this is the qualification. Looking up at Carol's figure, Thor ignored the joy in his heart and said in a deep voice. Tell me, what do you want me to do for you? I, Thor, will do what I say. Hearing this, Carol shrugged and showed a gratified smile. It's not a big deal, as long as you Asgards help me fight against the Kree Empire. This. Thornton stared, a little at a loss. What the hell is the Kree Empire? Are you sure you are serious? Can I put the hammer back now as if nothing happened? Otherwise, Odin might beat me to death when he wakes up. Just when Thor was embarrassed and a little overwhelmed. At this time, in the ear, there seemed to be a familiar roar. Idiot, get out of here, instantly. The situation is surging. A huge amount of energy fell from the sky. The familiar iridescent light comes again. In the same place, looking at the figure that disappeared with the light, Carol looked confused. Looking at the vast sea of clouds, his face was a little dazed. He ran away before the words were finished and the conditions were not agreed? Want to default? Can't afford it? Kamar Taj. Inside the magic holy place. Incense is curling up, antique. Russell is making tea. People watching the slow movements are anxious. After waiting for a long time, he said slowly. You mean to say that you really did what I said? Get Mjolnir back for him? Yes. Carol nodded speechlessly. However, as soon as I finished speaking, he left. She never thought about it. There is even such a thing as recklessness. Seeing that I was about to agree, the result. People run away. So all this effort was in vain? Thinking of this, Carol felt a little uncomfortable. There is a growing urge to hit someone. Beside, Nick Fury was also a little bit dumbfounded. What the hell is going on? Could this kind of thing happen among these powerful people? In this way, it's like being danced by a fairy. Anyone who comes here will probably feel bad too. It's Odin. Resisting the urge to laugh in his heart, Russell said slowly. Odin must have done it. There is probably no one else but him. Even if Heimdall keeps staring at Thor, and dare not disobey Odin's orders to bring down Bifrost. Only Odin can do this kind of thing. However, who made you want to drag Asgard into the water? Looking at the somewhat annoyed ant surprised in front of him, Russell thought to himself. Originally, Asgard's situation was not so good. And now, this amazing ant wants them to join the interstellar battlefield. Drag the whole of Asgard into the water. What's more, the enemy is still the behemoth Carrie Empire. When the time comes, everything about Asgard, strength and weakness will be revealed. Wouldn't it be exposed to other people's eyes? No one would do such a risky move. J. Hearing this name, Carol was taken aback for a moment. Immediately afterwards, I was even more annoyed. Couldn't help gnashing his teeth and said, this old guy is not a good bird either. As Thor's father, this pot, Han Ding is determined. Who told him to help his son break the agreement? In my heart, the more I thought about it, the angrier I became, and the expression on Carol's face suddenly became uglier. When I have time in the future, I must go to Asgard and let him know the consequences of breaking the agreement. As for now, Supreme Mage, what I want to know. As she spoke, she looked over and stared at him. About Faithter, Dormammu, and Cytoric, and what you call Mind Gem. Mind Gem? Hearing this, Luo Zheng was taken aback for a moment. Then, he smiled indifferently. These things will not be clear for a while. But before that, I think you'd be happy to meet someone with me. Who? Carol asked curiously. Next to him, Nick Fury looked over with puzzled eyes, waiting for his answer. Seeing this, Russell smiled slightly and said slowly. Me Faith, that Lord of Hell. I was thinking about going to see him sometime. But it just so happened that Aunt Surprise delivered it to my door. It would be a waste of battle experience not to take advantage of this time to have a heart-to-heart talk with this Hell Lord. Do you want to take me to hell? Carol suddenly had black question marks on his face. Hearing this, the expression on Russell's face was a little dumbfounded. It seemed that she had misunderstood something. You don't really think that this Hell Lord will stay in hell honestly, do you? No, he's on Earth now. However, the words should just fall. At this time, a gold vortex suddenly opened, presented in front of everyone. Russell couldn't help frowning immediately. Good guy, trespassing on Supreme Mage's palace? This is not small. But soon, he had no time to care about these issues. I saw Tony's figure hastily rushed out from inside. As soon as he appeared, he shouted anxiously. No, Supreme Mage, Dr. Banner and Dormammu are fighting. Everyone was stunned and reacted differently. Dr. Banner? The one that the military wanted to capture? Nick Fury looked puzzled. Dormammu? That Mephisto from the Dark Dimension. Carol was a little excited. Gearing up, eager to try. And Russell, hearing the news. I was a little dazed for a while. How did the two get entangled again? Could it be the body's instincts? Sympathy. Also, sure it's not Hulk and Dormammu? Wakanda. In this futuristic city hidden in a primeval forest. At the moment, there was a commotion. The crowd was terrified and dispersed. Looking at a certain direction outside the city, his face was full of fear. And in it, King T'Chaka's figure was also in sight, with a worried expression on his face. I don't know whether what happened during this period is good or bad for Wakanda. Beside, T'Challa replied with a smile, I thought, this must be good. After all, Supreme Mage didn't lie to us, did he? After he tried it, he came into contact with magic himself. It is natural to know the power possessed by magic. How unimaginable for common people. If he wants it, maybe it's just a thought, and the Supreme Mage can destroy Vakanen. However, he didn't do that. Hearing this, T'Chaka nodded with a wry smile. Exalted Mage is a man of integrity. However, the research and development of mind-shielding devices is still necessary. After all, not everyone has a supreme being so merciful. What he said was exactly Caecilius and others who attacked Wakanda last time. As followers of Dormammu, they can do whatever they want. Ignore the precepts of the mages and control the minds of humans. Even if it has been disposed of by the supreme mage. However, there is no guarantee that there will not be other people with similar abilities. Just in case, it is still necessary, however, we are talking. T'Chaka turned his head and looked to the side. Aren't you going to help? No need. T'Challa shook her head immediately, and said with a wry smile. When these two monsters fight, there is no chance for me to intervene. It may be that you are not good at learning. T'Chaka squinted over. No, it's not a question of lack of skill at all. There's no way Mage of Common can stand up to them. No matter how good your fist and kick skills are, you can't stand up to other people's strength. As he said that, he showed a lingering fear expression on his face, full of fear. It's a good thing Tony sent them into the mirror space before he left. Otherwise, I'm afraid Wakanda will suffer a lot. At this moment, ahead, a gold vortex opened. Several figures came out from inside. Supreme Mage. Hearing the shout, Russell nodded slightly. Looking around for a while, Carol was a little dazed. Where is Dormammu? What about Dormammu? Why can't I see any movement? Russell said, looking at a certain place, as if to see through it. In the mirror space. After speaking, he stretched out his arm. In an instant, cobweb-like cracks appear. Immediately afterwards, countless space barriers shattered. The figures of several people disappeared in place immediately. When it appeared again, it had already come to another space. Boom! The roar was mixed with a deafening roar. The violent shock echoed in this dead space. Huge power, as if even the air is trembling. Constant shock. Dormammu and Hulk just wrestled together. The surrounding collapsed houses were directly ignored by them. At the moment, looking at the two huge amounts of monster figures in front of you. The expression on Carol's face suddenly became more and more confused. He couldn't help frowning, and pointed. Is this what you call Dormammu? How does it feel? Is it a little different from the last time I saw it? The last time I saw it was a terrifying phantom. But what was in front of him was a hideous and terrifying monster. However, one thing is the same. That is the terrifying dark aura about him. Hearing this, Russell couldn't help but smile immediately. No, he's not the Dormammu you know. Right now, he's just an abomination named Dormammu. An abomination named Dormammu? What is hatred? The content of information was too much, and Carol couldn't help frowning. But soon, she stopped worrying so much. His eyes were on the two monsters who were fighting. It doesn't look like a product of the earth. She frowned, pretending to be contemplative. However, Russell glanced out of the corner of his eye, and immediately saw through her inner thoughts. If you want to, go for it. The militant was obviously itchy. In that case, let her deal with it directly. Good. Carol suddenly grinned. After speaking, the light of Nang Xing shrouded again. A shining figure emerges straight out. He rushed towards the two monsters who were fighting. With a casual glance, Russell quickly looked away. Turning his head, he looked aside, at Tony's body. I think you need to explain why Dormammu is here. This. Tony hesitated for a moment and couldn't speak. However, under Russell's more playful gaze, he had no choice but to obediently admit his cowardice. Well, I brought him here, he said, come out and get some air. Breathable. I think his skin is itchy. Russell couldn't help but sneered. For 3 days, the house will not be marked with tiles. This Dormammu, I'm afraid he has forgotten the days when he was dominated. But soon, he temporarily abandoned this idea. Let's talk about these things when we go back. What about Hulk? What's up with him? Hearing this, Tony quickly waved his hand to excuse himself. Well, it's Dr. Banner's emotional instability, it's none of my business. Emotionally unstable. Hearing this, Russell couldn't help being a little surprised. Stimulated. Right, he just saw his ex-girlfriend. Where? Wakanda. No. On the TV news, she married someone else. At the end, he seemed to feel that something was not enough, so he added another sentence. With an old man from the military, who made her father, the general, half dead. It is estimated that it can only be used to play the residual heat. No wonder. The name of Green Titan is worthy of the name. This excitement is really hard to handle, however, having said that. Tony did a good thing by doing this? Just countered the Green Titan with Dormammu? The United States. In a desolate town. The surrounding environment is completely different from the city. Backward and poor. It is the only sense it can bring to people. Looking at the surrounding scene, Carol couldn't help complaining. It's really desolate here. It gave her the feeling that she had returned to the mask she was on when she was on Earth. Development is completely out of touch with the times. But soon, she turned her head and looked aside. Looking at Russell's figure, I couldn't help being speechless. Is there a need to be so cautious? Even if we can't reach an agreement, we can't fight, but we can always survive, right? What kind of trouble is this fully armed appearance? Besides, are you sure Moto Faith is in this damn place? Such a helllord would actually choose to stay in this ghostly place that was almost behind the last century. If you say it, no one will believe it. It's always right to be careful, Russell replied casually. And, don't forget, Moto Faith is a demon. His thinking is different from that of human beings. On the surface, it looks careless, but in his heart, he was not as calm as he imagined. After millions of years, even a pig can become sperm. What's more, this is still a demon, Lord of Hell. No one knows what kind of means he has. Anyway, just be careful. On the side, Dormammu felt a little sad. This is simply naked discrimination. Once, when Dormammu invaded, he dealt with it empty-handed. I have never seen him so cautious. However, look at him now. The Book of Waishandi in the left hand and the Pearl of Agamotto in the right hand. The magic floating cloak on the back is automatic without wind, and the Eye of Agamotto is still hanging on the chest. It's literally armed to the teeth. Almost brought the whole magic holy place here. This. The same dimension Mephisto, am I not Dormammu worthy of your vigilance? So no cards? Dormammu means heart-tired. Meanwhile, Russell seemed to have discovered something. His eyes were burning, shining with the brilliance of magic. Then his eyes turned somewhere. Come out, Mo Faithter. I think, you shouldn't want me to use magic to force you out. Alright. Accompanied by a helpless sigh. After the slight space fluctuation, ripples filled the air. Soon, an old figure appeared in front of everyone. With silver hair and a neat suit, he looks energetic. Coupled with his conspicuous civilization staff. It is indeed Mo Faith Torre. This is his incarnation on Earth. Not long ago, because I saw it once in the chat group. Definitely, there's more to Russell's identification. That is, the sulfur smell on his soul. That was the soul breath that belonged exclusively to demons. No, it should be said that it is among all the dimensions that can be called hell. Only the unique breath of Faith's hell. Nice meeting, Supreme Mage. Mo Faith held a somewhat helpless expression on his face. Looking at the Supreme Mage in front of him, he barely smiled and saluted like a gentleman. Turning his head, he greeted the two people next to him. Long time no see, Dormammu, and this one, Ms. Carol. It's been a long time. Dormammu's ferocious face showed a dumbfounding expression. The relationship between the two of them is not very good. It should be said that the relationship between Mephisto in each dimension will not be too wonderful. It can even be said to be a competitive relationship. However, who would have thought that when they met again, it would be like this? Moreover, until now, he still doesn't understand why the Supreme Mage brought him here. Could it be that it's just for me to catch up with him? Dormammu thought to himself. The more likely scenario is to do it directly. Pinch. Definitely, according to normal circumstances. He's the one who gets pinched. Me Faith, Carol frowned, looking at the kind old man in front of him. In my heart, I felt an inexplicable disgust. Without him, this smile is too hypocritical. If you hadn't said he was a devil, maybe I would think he was a devil now. Devils and devils, to him, there's not much difference, Russell shrugged. Immediately, the eyes looked over. I suppose so, Mer Faith? Hearing this, the smile on Mo Faith's face became even brighter. That's right. This is a compliment to me. At the very least, this shows that he has successfully disguised himself. However, he looked at the smiling Russell in front of him. Moto Faith always felt that he had some malicious intentions. Really. The following words directly corrected the conjecture in his heart. Mo Faith, now is the time to sign a new contract. Russell squinted and smiled. This time, there is no excuse for you to escape. A new contract. Mo Faith felt a little distressed for a moment. Although he knew that sooner or later he would be found. However, what made him somewhat unexpected was that this day, it will be so fast. Looking at the Supreme Mage in front of him, he couldn't help but sigh in his heart. It seems that he came prepared. This body is full of artifacts. Obscure energy fluctuations. Even if it is him, I dare not underestimate him. It seems that this is determined to restrict his activities on the earth. Remember, the last time I told him that was Ancient One Mage and Odin. Due to the strength of these two in this universe, he did it. But now, the Supreme Mage in front of me and Carol, Ms. Marvel. Thinking of this, the corners of Mo Faith's mouth curled up, and he squinted his eyes. Speaking of which, Supreme Mage, we haven't had time to communicate properly yet. I'm afraid we'll have to talk about the new contract later. Hearing this, Russell couldn't help squinting his eyes. When it comes to this, the meaning is already obvious. Communicate? Are you sure you don't mean to touch? After all, the world always speaks with strength. Have the strength to have the right to speak. If you want Moto to obey the rule, you can. But, let him see his own strength first. But, for that, before coming, Russell had expected it. This Hell-Lord probably won't give in so easily. After all, he is not. And Carol next to him is not as famous as Odin. Only. If Faith thought the two of them would be easier to deal with. It can only be said that he miscalculated. Seeing Faith's wicked smile in front of him, Russell snorted coldly. In that case, then as you wish. After speaking, stretch your hands forward. Layers of space debris peeled off. In the blink of an eye, you have come to another space. Mirror space. Russell explained with a squinting smile. Here we can fight unscrupulously. Definitely, the premise is that Faith is not in the body state now. Otherwise, the battlefield might have to be moved to the multi-universe. Hearing this, Mo Faith remained indifferent, but nodded indifferently. Didn't show much surprise. After so many years, what kind of ability has not been seen? It's just a mirror space, so what's the surprise? However, after glancing at the two people beside Russell who were eager to fight, they were suddenly speechless. 3v1? Are you sure this is really fair? But soon, Moto Faith's heart moved, and he immediately had an idea. Under the gaze of everyone, he smiled and stretched out his hand. Come out, my knight. Instantly, the mirror space is broken. In the pitch-black crack, a terrifying opening appeared. Immediately afterwards, two burning figures walked out from inside. And Moto Faith is right, these are two knights worthy of the name. Only. Their mounts are different. Flame chariots and skeleton horses that seem to come from hell. And above, the terrifying and ferocious skeleton, revealing the white bones on the head. The two knights were covered in hellfire. There was an icy aura in the scorching flames. It seems to be able to freeze the soul of a person. Seeing this, Carol couldn't help frowning and crossed his arms. Is this the skull that Nick told me about? These two guys gave her a very bad feeling. Especially the hellfire covering them. There is a tingling sensation just by looking at it. She couldn't help but feel a little terrified. However, according to the information, they are monsters that cannot be killed. I don't know if this is true. Thinking of this, Carol's eyes lit up suddenly. It's like seeing your favorite prey. Gearing up, some eager to try. She can't wait to rush up and have a big fight. Presumably, these two must be qualified sandbags. As for dealing with Mer Faith, isn't there still the Supreme Mage? Next to him, Dormammu also breathed a sigh of relief. If he's dealing with Faith Moto, he must be beaten. Just his little arms and legs, in front of this Hell Lord. I'm afraid I don't even have the chance to get close to him. Although I don't know if this person is still bound by the contract. However, the power that Faith can exert is definitely stronger than him. At the very least, it is much stronger than his four-faced, hateful body. At the moment, watch the two Ghost Riders suddenly appear in the mirrored space. Russell also couldn't help being a little speechless, squinting his eyes and looking over. Co-author, have you already prepared for it? As expected of a devil who likes to call himself a devil. This back and forth, the fighting power will be evened out. Although Ghost Rider's ability can't be called very powerful. However, it is a very simple matter to hold them back. Because, they are regenerative healing factor. In terms of difficulty, even in the entire Marvel world, it can be ranked first. Russell felt a little tired all of a sudden. However, I didn't care too much. These two were originally pulled over to help out, from the town. The real decisive factor still depends on him and Faith. Let's go, Supreme Mage, Mo Faith said with a smile. In the mirror space. The surging tide, the huge force soaked the entire sky. The airflow tore through the space, as if it had become a storm. Even, wrap the whole space in the west. The magic power of gold, the power of black-red. Clear boundaries. Like a straight line, it divides the feature space into two halves. High altitude. The vast figures are colliding fiercely. Powerful shockwave, even the space is trembling. Cobweb-like fissures dot the entire area. The atmosphere of danger is filled in an instant. Supreme Mage, you are much stronger than you look. Even, I feel that you are much stronger than Friday Zero, Mage. I have to say, the ability of human beings is really unique. Modo Faith praised in his mouth. However, the movements of the hands are not slow at all. The deep energy is like a vortex, the past. The space is peeled off layer by layer like a mirror. Countless fragments were involved in it. All of a sudden, the terrifying black-red storm is coming. Swallow all obstacles in front of you. Even the entire space seems to be destroyed. You're not bad either. Russell squinted at the storm that was sweeping in front of him, and Russell showed no sign of weakness. Behind it, the magic levitation cloak is windless and automatic. Red's cloth stretches rapidly. Rush forward. Like a canopy, it wraps everything in front of you. Directly wrap the terrifying space storm. However, Russell still feels that something is not enough. In his hand, a magic wand suddenly appeared, Vatum's staff. It's like adding oil and vinegar. Moment. The magic power permeating the air instantly boils. The warm golden light instantly becomes extremely dazzling. I didn't expect you to be able to display such a powerful strength on Earth. It seems that the contract between Ancient One Mage and you still has loopholes. Looking at Faith, whose strength was getting more and more terrifying, Russell couldn't help but feel a little emotional. The power that this Helllord can display is much stronger than he imagined. If the contract signer is an individual, well, this vulnerability may not exist. But now, the one who signed the contract was a Helllord who looked more like a devil than a devil. In the aspect of checking for deficiencies and filling leaks, and taking advantage of loopholes. Modo Faith is always professional. He successfully found the loophole. And the power of the Hell dimension was summoned. Vulnerabilities? Hearing this, Mo Faith smiled slightly. The raised corners of the mouth looked a little treacherous. No, I'm just following the contract. During the conversation. Behind him, the projection of the Hell dimension is getting more and more terrifying. As if to emerge from the illusion in general. You can even see many hideous demon scenes from it. Following that, more and more intense black colors spread across the entire sky. Among them, there is an unbearable sulfur smell. And the wailing that seemed to be swallowed by the undead. This is the power from the dimension of Hell. The entire space is being eroded under the control of Faith. Even with the blessing of Vatum's magic wand, it's a little hard to resist. However, this is not a big deal for Russell, the Book of Emperor Wyshan. Turn your hands over, and immediately another artifact will appear on the stage. As an artifact specially used against black magic. Used against Faith, it has the same effect. Gold's magic powers soared in an instant. The huge power soaked the entire sky, as if it was crushed. Overwhelming power. Below. The space oscillates, and energy storms continue to sweep through. The two confront each other at a high altitude, the energy is overflowing, and the danger is extremely dangerous. After crushing Ghost Rider to the bone again. Looking at the hellfire ignited again in front of him, Carol felt extremely depressed. It seems that this Skull Knight is really unbeatable. Regenerative healing factor, it's terribly difficult. Even if its bones were smashed and its ashes scattered, there was no way. It only takes a while, and he can climb up from the raging hellfire. She would definitely be very interested in such a sandbag in normal times. However, he turned his eyes to the two who were covered by the diffuse aura above. More and more terrifying energy fluctuations came from above. Even she couldn't help but feel a little terrified. But in my heart, there is more excitement. There is simply an urge to rush forward. Turning his head, ignoring the growing wailing sound shaking the space. Carol looked aside and was stunned. What is this Dormammu? Ass on fire? No, this is the death of the earth. But after a closer look, she suddenly became more confused. He sat down on the bottom and used it as a cushion. Isn't that the undead Ghost Rider? Huh? Ghost Rider was suppressed by him like this? Physical suppression. It's too hardcore. But immediately, Carol turned her head silently, and her eyes returned to the newly revived Ghost Rider. In the eyes, there is some evil interest revealed faintly. I have to say, this method is very useful. Well, just look at the way Dormammu eats leisurely. And, what's more, it also suits her appetite very well. She has always been hardcore enough, not long. Two Ghost Riders summoned by Modo, no longer rampant. Couldn't even get up anymore. It has been clearly arranged. Looking down, there is a raging hellfire. To be precise, it should be two groups. Double the joy. Dormammu felt his ass was getting hot. It feels like being grilled on a grill. I was extremely depressed. He just turned his head and glanced at Carol beside him. He suddenly had nothing to say. The energy on this body is so strong that it even formed the shape of a flame. As long as you are a discerning person, you can see that it is not easy to mess with. What's more, what made Dormammu even more frightened. The explosive power inside her. Once released, it will definitely not be much worse than the two fighting above. I can only suffocate those words that I want to scold my mother into my stomach. As she said, who made his ass go crazy? Beside, Carol was ignorant of Dormammu's internal complaints. At the moment, days in the sky, the terrifying energy storm continued to surge. Huge amounts of energy vortexes gathered to form a doomsday scene. From time to time, lightning and thunder, Scarlet's lightning branches crisscrossed, tearing apart the entire space. Seeing this, even she couldn't help but sigh. What a terrifying power, although she felt that she would not be much weaker. However, she never really tried to release all of her force zones. I have never seen such a terrifying battle before. The pouring of energy shattered the entire space with ease. In the huge and deep void, it was a scene of dead silence and nothingness. And as the battle between the two becomes more complicated, at this moment, she deeply realized the true meaning of the dimension Mephisto that Russell said. If this battle is placed on the Earth, I am afraid that not many people will survive. Just that creepy space storm can destroy everything. Not to mention, the boundless ocean of energy is clearly defined. The boundless light and darkness seem to submerge the entire Earth. And in it, there is a terrifying energy, enough to blow anyone off. After all, not every human being can have such luck as her. Use those huge energies for your own use, that's definitely. On the side, Dormammu curled his lips and said disdainfully. This is the most essential collision of forces, and it is not comparable to the playhouse between you humans. However, these are only pediatrics, if it's placed in the multi-universe, hee. Are you afraid of the force that suppresses the entire dimension together? No matter what planet you have, it will be flattened for you. However, thinking of this, he couldn't help feeling a little tired. When will I, Dormammu, be able to return to the dark dimension? Back then, he was such a powerful member, it's just that I was tricked later. But immediately, he shook his head and abandoned this unrealistic idea. I feel a little sad. I have imprinted my soul brand, and I am afraid that I will be inseparable from this supreme mage for the rest of my life. The most essential power, is it a collision of original energy? Carol looked at the sky, thoughtful. Such a terrifying energy collision is indeed more intuitive. The powerful side is unreservedly reflected. As a strong man, he swayed his power unscrupulously. Only, compared to this way of fighting, she prefers the feeling of punching to the flesh, crushing the dead. Thinking about it, she couldn't help turning her head to look aside. He clenched his fist, then smiled coldly and said, if I heard correctly just now, you said that human battles are a play, right? Dormammu. Danger, can I take that back? Seriously, you're not human at all. Evening on Earth. In the endless starry sky. Standing on top of the planet, the two figures are particularly eye-catching. Looking at the scene below, Russell couldn't help feeling a little headache. This faith is really difficult. The energy frenzy enveloped the entire Earth, drowning everything. Shattered space black hole, like a stain on it. It looks, potholed, like a piece of cheese. It looks a bit permeable. Among them, the dividing line of black gold is particularly eye-catching. Gold's area coverage exceeds the parameter, while black-red's curtain covers Shaolin. In this collision of forces returning to the essence, it was he who had the upper hand. However, Russell knows that these are only temporary. With the influx of Hell Dimension power, Modo's power will become stronger and stronger. Now that the battle has progressed, there is only one question left in his mind. How much longer does Faith Modo want to hang out? I'm afraid it will go on like this. Before they could come up with a result, the entire mirror space was about to be shattered by the two of them. Next, there is Earth. When the time comes, this result will be of no benefit to anyone. Thinking of this, Russell felt a little tired and had a headache. If there is really no other way, then we can only. And opposite. Looking at Russell's figure, Modo Faith also felt a little distressed. Although the power of the Hell Dimension is pouring in more and more. However, he felt more and more difficult to move forward. This guy has too many artifacts. This was something he had to complain about in his heart. If it were a common artifact, he probably wouldn't care. For example, the hammer that fell from the sky a few days ago was completely ignored by him. But, look at the artifacts in the hands of the Supreme Mage, which one is common? The Book of Visander, the Wand of Vadum, the Eye of Agamotto, and the Cloak of Levitating. A proper suit of divine adornments, I'm so. Just then. Suddenly, out of the corner of his eye, he flicked. Modo Faith once again spotted Russell's gesture of pulling something out. Immediately a little anxious, I vomited. It's not over yet. Bullying me to go out without equipment? Wait, Supreme Mage, we have something to discuss. Isn't it just a contract? I signed it, isn't it done? In the mirror space. With Moto's words, everything came to an end. The overwhelming energy frenzy casts a shadow over the entire world. Instantly clean up. And left behind, fragmented traces. Also under the space repairing power, slowly heal. In the sky. The two figures landed quickly. It was Russell and Murdo. Seeing this, Carol suddenly looked over curiously. It's all over. The result. Before she finished speaking, she stopped talking. Because, from the faces of the two of them, they already understood everything. The smile on Russell's face was much worse than usual. As for Moto Faith, a dark face, full of depressed expression. Watch Ghost Rider sitting on his ass by Dormammu. His face suddenly darkened again, and he even felt a bit of toothache. What the hell, Ghost Rider doesn't want to lose face. Don't you know it's my Faith's masterpiece? Is it just being used as a bench by you? However, this situation arises. At the same time, it also made Faith Moto aware of the shortcomings of this version of Ghost Rider. It seems that when they return to Hell, they will have to be reformed again. Best, add some other ability or something. Otherwise, encounter a stronger enemy. I'm afraid it can only be used as a sandbag for others. Soon. Accompanied by Mo Faith waved. In an instant, the burning hellfire disappeared. At the same time, the figures of the two Ghost Riders also disappeared in place. Sitting down on the ground, Dormammu suddenly felt the urge to scold his mother. However, casting him a hard look could only let it go. Who told him not to beat it? If he could beat it, he would have gone to hell and smashed this thing to pieces. Seeing this, Russell couldn't help but laugh. Dormammu swallowed his anger. It's really funny. Especially, he is wearing a disgusted look. Inside the magic holy place, a solemn ceremony is underway. Moto Faith looked at the contents on the parchment in his hand, feeling more and more toothache. This Supreme Mage exploits people. It's even worse than she. At least, Ancient One gave him something to think about at the time. However now, really don't give me any face? Just limit your strength. At this point, it is the same as that of Ancient One. On Earth, there was originally the suppression of magic barriers. Coupled with the restrictions of the contract, the power he can exert. Simply pitiful. However, what's the matter with prohibiting the invasion of the Earth by the forces of Hell? Seeing this condition, Faith suddenly had black lines all over his head. What is this? I defend myself. Noticing the strange look in his eyes, Russell couldn't help but smile immediately. He raised his teacup, took a sip of tea, and then said, "This is a necessary condition. Maybe Ancient One Mage didn't add it to the contract, it's just that he didn't notice your little trick." Small action? Hearing this, Mo Faith felt a little dissatisfied immediately. Supreme Mage, don't frame me. Although I'm a devil, you can't deny my contract spirit. Hearing this, Russell couldn't help laughing immediately. Yes, your spirit of contract is indeed commendable. It can be seen from the fact that Moto Faith has never crossed the line for thousands of years. If he had crossed the line, he would have been kicked out by Ancient One long ago. Only. As he spoke, Russell's gaze at the past also became playful. You really didn't cross the line. However, it is undeniable that you took advantage of the loophole in the original contract. I can tolerate the existence of Ghost Rider. I can stop pursuing the soul transaction. After all, this can be said to be a reasonable existence within the scope of the contract. Moto Faith has the right to trade reasonably on Earth. As long as you love me, you can. Among them, the option of selling souls is naturally included. But, there are some things that I can't ignore, Russell said. His tone was a bit inexplicable. He looked over with great interest. In the depths of his eyes, there was a little indifference. Need I remind you, Faith? For example, Saint Van Gonza's contract, and the Witch Heart Demon. Hearing this, I was a little panicked. How do you know? However, meet his gradually icy eyes. For a while, he naturally understood what he meant. So, he could only shrug his shoulders and admit it helplessly. Although I did not do these things, they are indeed related to me. Didn't you do it? Hee. Russell smiled irrefutably. Who would believe this? According to him, as long as it is caused by the existence of hell, it will definitely have something to do with faith. What witch heart demon, son of the devil? Is there anyone who doesn't know that this is all a name? A child of a demon like a shaman. They were all picked up. In the dimension of hell, there are a few if not hundreds. Even if it's all dead, it doesn't feel bad at all. I don't care if you're testing my bottom line or looking for opponents for your knights. Anyway, I only have one request. Send these guys back to hell. Kamar Taj. Inside the magic holy place, it's been a few days since Mo Faith signed the contract. The friendly negotiation between the two finally ended with Faith reluctantly agreeing. There is no doubt about the strength of the contract that carries special power. As long as Faith Modo crosses the line, then the first time, as the signer of the contract. Russell was able to detect the anomaly. However, I think the current Stowe should not take any risks. Sitting cross-legged, Russell felt a little happy. The reason is simple. Because for him, there is no such need at all. Even to collect souls, he doesn't need to do it himself. The Ghost Rider under his hand is not for nothing. Unless, there are some unexpected circumstances. However, this possibility is extremely slim. Even Russell didn't even think about it. At this moment, outside the holy place, Carol's figure walked in. Behind, followed by Dormammu with a bruised nose and a swollen face full of helplessness. Supreme Mage, I want to go to Asgard. Carol had a displeased expression on his face. Some things, if you take a step back and think about it, the more you get angry with your daughter-in-law. The already cooked duck just flies. I'm afraid, anyone will feel uncomfortable in the heart. Obviously Thor has promised her. As a result, this guy Odin stepped in. Before he finished speaking, he directly pulled the person back. Over the past few days, the more Carol thought about it, the more uncomfortable she felt. I think it's necessary to ask Odin for an explanation, she gritted her teeth. To Asgard? Russell was speechless for a moment. Do you think, with your current appearance, you can enter the gate of Asgard? This look full of evil spirits. I'm afraid, Heimdall dare not lower Bifrost. What's more, she may not have thought of it. This ant surprise has most likely been included in Asgard's blacklist. As for the reason, learn about abetting crime. Almost put Asgardella into the quagmire of war. Odin would be surprised if he could stand it. Hearing this, Carol was suddenly silent, a little speechless. However, the resentment in my heart became more and more profound. She wants to vent, and no longer content with the sandbag of Dormammu. Suddenly, I had an idea. She thought of that magical chat group. Ms. Marvel Carol. At Odin, come out, give me an explanation. Why are you stopping me? Asgard. Golden Hall apps. Odin is worrying about Thor. It's simply hating iron but not steel. What the hell, it's fine to just waste a good training experience like this. How the hell almost got me into such a big trouble? Just thinking about it made him feel scared. If Carol really succeeds, Thor agrees. Then, with his single-minded character, he will definitely fulfill his promise. At that time, I am afraid that everything in Asgard will no longer be hidden. The aging God King, the young and impulsive successor, and an army accustomed to living in peace, when all this is exposed to the eyes of the prying eyes. Isn't it just becoming a sweet pastry, at this moment? In my mind, the chat group vibrated. Ding's face turned black when he saw the content above. It's fine not to trouble you, but you still dare to trouble me? If it was the violent temper he had when he was young, he must have already raised his gun and mounted his horse. Now, however, he cannot leave Asgard, so, I had no choice but to respond. God King Odin. At Carol, Thor is still a child, there is no need to argue so much with him. How old are children? Super baby. Seeing this, Russell almost laughed out loud. Glancing at Carol's complexion, he really didn't look very good. However, this is not good for offline laning, so switch back to online? This is the rhythm to strike hard. Ms. Marvel. All I know is, I got Mjolnir back for him. According to the agreement, it should be his turn to fulfill the promise. Old rascal. Odin was suddenly helpless. Just holding on to this point, he must be unreasonable. After all, who made him anxious at that time? Send everyone back to Asgard directly. However, just as he was thinking about the solution in his heart. Suddenly, seeing a name in the chat group, my heart moved, and I suddenly had an idea. God King Odin. At Mage Russell, things on Earth are up to you. Seeing this, Russell was suddenly speechless. Do you want to divert misfortune, or do you want to get rid of the topic? Odin wouldn't be surprised that Big Mom is so easy to deceive, right? Want to drag him down with you and muddy the water? But Russell said, I will not take the blame. Supreme Mage Russell, this is out of my hands. If you take more care, I'm afraid it will become a diplomatic dispute between Earth and Asgard. However, he has a great offer. At Odin, where is Thor now? Why don't you send Thor to Earth to explain it? God King Odin. After finally taking him back, why send him here? Sheep into tiger's mouth? Trick the dog in and kill it? Old and insidious. If this is true, I'm afraid I'll be led astray by you. Odin thought that he had an ally relationship, and the Supreme Mage would say a few good words for him. No matter how bad it is, I can help. What I didn't expect was that I gave myself such a bad idea. Immediately, his face was a little tired, and he could only explain euphemistically. God King Odin. Forget it. Thor has no time these days. Well, he's digging coal. Dig coal. Seeing this, Russell couldn't help but laugh. On the other side, Carol's face was also a little speechless. This Odin. Really outraged? Even his own son was sent directly to the frontier? Hammer's disgraced look. Just thinking about it made Russell almost laugh out loud. However, after a little thought, he discovered the flaw. Because, things like coal digging. Asgard doesn't seem to need this thing at all. If you say that you have gone to blacksmithing, then there is really a possibility. After all, Mjolnir is as powerful as he is. It's a hammer after all. The most suitable place for it should be a blacksmith. However, thinking of this, Russell suddenly thought of something. I don't know how the current Bifrost is. How is the construction work? Thinking of this, he suddenly became a little interested. Turning his head, he glanced at Carol, who was being yelled at by Odin, who had nothing to say, and asked. Are you interested in coming with me? Hearing this, Carol was taken aback for a moment. Immediately afterwards, he turned his head and said doubtfully. Where are you going? Bifrost. Asgard. Hearing this, Carol's face was filled with surprise and his eyes lit up. Gearing up, eager to try. Can you stop thinking about your Asgard? Isn't it the ball? It's not the one in Asgard. Russell couldn't help but rolled his eyes and explained speechlessly. I'm talking about Bifrost on Earth. On Earth. Carol was a little dazed for a while. However, he glanced at Russell's expression. That serious look didn't look like he was joking at all. I had to ask suspiciously, Asgard's Bifrost technology? You got it? The existence of Bifrost, even in the universe, is also famous. I don't know how many people are hungry for this. Other needless to say. Just the ultra-long-distance space teleportation ability is a weapon of war. Not to mention, there is also an ultra-long-distance strike ability that spans most of the universe. Simply terrifyingly strong. It can be said that Asgard has the powerful status it has today. Half of it is because of God King Odin, and the other half can almost be said to be given by this Bifrost. This is enough to show that others are afraid of it. That's right. Russell nodded. As he spoke, he stretched out his hand and opened a gold door. Turning around, I gave her a look and let her experience it for herself. It was given to me by Odin. For this reason, I signed a 9-world contract with him. Now, we are allies. Understood? Got it all? Hearing this vague hint, Carol suddenly realized something. No wonder. No wonder this Supreme Mage shirks with various excuses and is unwilling to take him to Asgard. It turns out that there is still this relationship. Co-author. I just found the wrong partner. Depressed. Carol was unhappy, but he had no choice but to follow in. But before leaving, Russell turned around and reminded him. Dormammu, don't forget to watch the gate, Dormammu. One thing to say, this Supreme Mage is a real dog. It's okay to give me to that violent madman as a human sandbag. My bones are falling apart. Why do you want me to go to work? I bother. Wakanda. This high-tech city hidden in the virgin forest. Under the cover of special optical materials, it has never appeared in the eyes of the world. And at the moment, a huge project is unfolding here. Looking at the scene in front of him, Tony introduced while walking. Most half of the skeleton project has been completed, so we flattened most of the forest and expanded the coverage of the optical barrier. Otherwise, all this would have been discovered by outsiders long ago. As for the rest, all need magic to participate. I have to say, Wakanda's technological level is really amazing. Even he didn't expect to build so fast, although what they need to do is only some basic construction. However, it is indeed too fast to say nothing. What's more, he still hasn't figured out how to realize the combination of Asgard's magic plus technology in his mind. In front of you, the edge of a waterfall. A bridge spanning several kilometers stands majestically. All kinds of magic materials shone with strange brilliance. In the sun, it looks dazzling and eye-catching. Although only a little skeleton work has been completed. However, some shadows of Asgard Bifrost can already be seen. Not bad. Looking at the scene in front of him, Russell couldn't help but nodded in satisfaction. Now, just waiting for the construction of the road surface on Bifrost to be completed. At that time, the torrent of colorful energy will flow on the bridge deck, which is definitely a beautiful scenery. Definitely, there is one more place that should not be overlooked either. That is, the core control room, the control center of the entire Bifrost. At the same time, it is also the most important place on Bifrost. Beside, looking at the magnificent Bifrost building in front of him, Carol's expression looked a little weird. I thought you'd already built Bifrost, if it's done. If Bifrost is built, you can take the opportunity to sneak to Asgard. Russell took the lead in expressing her inner thoughts, laughing and teasing. However, what responded to him was Carol squinting over with contemptuous eyes. You're spying on my inner thoughts again, can I show my face? Russell shrugged, with a look of helplessness on his face. I don't intend to offend, but what you think in your heart is written on your face. Yes, Tony. Tony was speechless for a moment. That's great. Why did it involve me again? Forced to open. However, facing Russell's eyes full of deep meaning, he had no choice but to bite the bullet and nod. Exalted Mage is right. However, at this point, Tony's heart suddenly jumped. Suddenly, I remembered something. Supreme Mage, there is something I must tell you. About Bifrost, we are still missing 2 core components. Hearing this, Russell immediately frowned and looked over. What core component? Ulu metal and energy source. Ulu metal and the energy source? Yes. Tony nodded with a wry smile. Ulu metal is the core component to open Bifrost, and energy is the most important thing. Without these 2 things, Bifrost has no way to start. I once thought about using an arc reactor to provide power. However, after calculation, I may have to build a giant reactor with a file size of hundreds of meters to be enough. Moreover, it is still the kind that barely starts once. Let's not talk about how much energy needs to be invested in it. Funds alone, I'm afraid he will be dealt with. The energy required to activate Bifrost once is simply astronomical. Hearing this, Russell frowned even more. But after thinking about it for a while, it immediately stretched out. Ulu metal for this. Don't worry about it. Odin will send someone over. According to the content of the contract, it is indeed. Regardless of whether Asgard is currently in stock or not. Anyway, even if it is deducted from the sun, one must be deducted for him. Otherwise, I'm afraid he will have to go to Asgard himself. After all, this is the metal extracted from the core of the fixed star. The difficulty is so great that only Asgard has such a technique. But correspondingly, there is no doubt about the strength of Ulu metal. Whether it is physical characteristics or magical properties, it is an excellent level. Mjolnir, the Eternal Spear, the Destroyer Armor, and later the Stormax. As long as it is an artifact of Asgard, the addition of Ulu metal is indispensable. However, there are rumors that Mjolnir's forge may have been adulterated with fakes. That's why it shatters when touched. In the same way, Russell has reason to suspect that the set of destroyer armor in his hand is not genuine. After all, it is also broken at the touch of a touch. Well, when I have a chance in the future, I must ask Odin to ask for clarification. But for now, put this matter aside for now. The problem with the energy source. Russell thought, and couldn't help but look to the side. If you can use this surprise ant as a large battery, it will definitely be enough. However, the premise is that you are not afraid of being beaten to death by her. Suddenly, Russell thought of infinite gems again. Especially the existence of the space gem. This gemstone claims to be able to communicate with all major dimensions and has infinite energy. Definitely an excellent option. However, after thinking for a while, Russell gave up on this plan. Without him, it's not safe. Things like infinite gems are too dangerous to put outside. And only staying by your side is the safest option. But right away, he thought of something more suitable. The Eternal Fire. This gift from Odin finally came in handy. The Eternal Fire? Look at the little flame in Russell's hand. Carol and Tony suddenly had black question marks on their heads. Although the distant and powerful aura in it made them dare not underestimate it. However, with just a little bit of energy, can it be called eternal? The energy response is not as big as my large arc reactor in New York, Tony muttered. What the hell? Russell's mouth twitched twice. Resisting the urge to slap him to death twice in my heart, I explained. This is the energy core of the flame titan Serta from the 9 realms. Although it is only a part of him, it is enough to provide energy for Bifrost. Should be. Enough? Russell was also a little uncertain. However, according to his prediction, it should be enough. If the energy consumption of Bifrost startup is so outrageous. I'm afraid Asgard didn't dare to use it lightly. As for why Tony's arc reactor needs so much energy. It should be because of the low energy quality. After all, that translates into higher levels of energy. This process alone requires a lot of consumption. Not to mention, the activation of Bifrost requires the addition of magic. However, thinking of this, Russell suddenly remembered one thing. He lowered his head and squinted at Tony's chest. Really? Still an old-fashioned arc reactor. The new element left to him by his cheap daddy has yet to be discovered. It seems that you have been really dedicated to your work during this time. Looking at Tony, who was a little dazed in front of him, Russell couldn't help but feel deeply moved. Need I remind you, Tony? Palladium poisoning. Hearing this, Tony suddenly realized. The look on his face suddenly became as ugly as eating shit. What the hell, I almost forgot about it myself. There are too many things and the world is busy. Even the matter of palladium poisoning was forgotten. Put life and death aside. What a professionalism. This spirit, Russell hopes he can carry forward. However, before that, still need to save his life. Otherwise, where would you find such an employee? Well, Tony, I'll give you a week off. First of all, you need to search in your father's belongings. Russell spoke eloquently. There will be some surprises waiting for you. Then, maybe you need an operation to remove the shrapnel buried at the edge of your heart. This way you don't have to worry about the arc reactor on your chest anymore. Papa's relic. I see. Hearing this, Tony reluctantly nodded his head, as if he understood. Although some do not understand the meaning of Supreme Mage. However, there is one thing he knows very well. That is, Supreme Mage will never deceive him. Because, it is not necessary at all, but for the surgery, I think it's better to forget it. Tony said with some disgust. Let Modu Mage do the surgery for me, this. It is too unreliable. Yes. Russell nodded with a smile. Of course he knew what Tony was worried about. However, what made him somewhat unexpected was that it was obviously a joke at the beginning, but he remembered it so clearly. Moreover, it seems that there are already shadows. A face full of fear. In that case, then I will recommend a suitable candidate for you. I don't know if you've heard, but in New York, there's a doctor named Stephen Strange. No. Tony shook his head decisively. In New York, he has always only paid attention to women. When did he care about the name of the man? Perhaps the two had met before, but now, it is absolutely forgotten. He can help me with my heart problem. Does this doctor have a high level of surgery? Even fame has reached the ears of Supreme Mage? No. Russell smiled and shook his head. He can't, at least not right now. However, his magical ability is very powerful. What's the point? What does a strong magical ability have to do with helping me perform surgery? As long as you can convince him to join the magic holy place, after he learns magic, won't he be able to perform surgery for you? Russell shrugged and said as it should. Under the power of magic, it is easy to remove a single piece of the edge of your heart. Definitely, provided he doesn't shake his hands. When you said that, I suddenly started to panic.